Hey friends, and welcome back to Path of Exile, a little over a week after League start with our Fire Burst Ignite Chieftain Autobomber. So, we've reached the point where I'm going to stop with this build. I've got it doing everything that I want it to do. We have all of our Watchstones that I just finished up. And its real purpose, which is farming essences, it is quite good at. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the build. So we've switched out Stormbrand for static ball lightning, and that is because static ball lightning hits a lot more often, and we've attached a increased critical strikes to that, so that we can refresh our ignites more consistently. This helps a lot with boss damage, but otherwise isn't super important, because really we just need a hit to start off our ignites. Overall, the point of the build was to be able to farm currency, and it does that really well. Even with pretty tanky essence mobs, it does fine. And it got us through all of our beginning Watchstones, which is what we also wanted from our starter. Outside of that, we just run maps. So right now we're sitting somewhere between 200 and 400,000 DPS with our Fire Burst Ignite, depending on whether or not we're standing still, things like that. However, the Ignite that is actually doing the majority of our damage is the Hinakora's Ignite, and that's why we wanted our Ball Lightning instead of anything else. So we have something explode, and then that applies our big Ignite, which is in the millions of DPS. I'm not sure exactly how to calculate that in POB, but it's quite large comparatively. And so we have that Ignite, and then we have our Ball Lightning, which is hitting a bunch and critting fairly often, but it only needs to crit a couple of times to refresh the duration on Ignite. So that's a quick map showcase for the build. In the background while we're talking, I'm going to have some clips from the boss fights for Maven and UberElder. Unfortunately, I accidentally made UberElder Maven Witnessed, so that made it a little more difficult than it really needed to be. Alright, so switching over to POB, we can look and see that our Fire Burst is somewhere around 200,000 DPS, with the assumption that we are standing still. Outside of that, we are just tanky, which is really, really nice. This is with Molten Shell on, though. Let me turn that off. Turning that off, we're still pretty tanky. We're much more vulnerable on Fizzmax hit, but we do pretty good. I don't really plan on taking this build any further. There is more that you could do to make this build do more damage, or really be more tanky if you wanted to. But I'm very satisfied with the performance of this build right now. One thing that we can look at is if we go over to our Vile Flame Blast and put that up to 15, you can see that our Ignite DPS from Vile Flame Blast is 569,000, and so that is something that we can pretty heavily rely on in boss fights. But our big damage is coming from on kill monster explosion. Now this is something that I don't know how to really calculate, so I don't know how accurate this number is. But it is way bigger as far as DPS goes than our Vile Flame Blast, and that's very evident from our boss fights. So this is where our big damage comes in, and then we're utilizing our Ball Lightning to crit, and that's going off at somewhere around 14% of the time. So that crit will then refresh the big ignites that we have, specifically our Hinakoras, with this 50% chance to refresh. and it has plenty of time to do so, as the ignite from this lasts 4.48 seconds. So that ball lightning has plenty of time to crit quite a few times before that happens, and that's if we're keeping ball lightning up. Yeah, that's how the damage numbers break down. Again, it's not something that's like crazy damage. It's not going to do Ubers, but it got us through all of our watchstones, and it is very effective at farming our essences. So going into what's coming next for our builds, the next build I am planning is a Flicker Strike cast on crit, which is going to be utilizing Energy Blade and Spell Blade. So big thanks to Captain Lance for a lot of this build's inspiration, as he did a cast on crit starter that utilized a lot of this tech. And so we're just going to be capitalizing on that, and we're using Flicker Strike of power. And the plan is to also use Cold Snap of power, and so we're going to use both of these generating power charges and doing hopefully a ton of damage. We'll see how it works out. Right now I'm using Arc as the cast on crit because I could not get a Cold Snap, but so far it's working pretty well. The crit chance is not high enough at the moment. The rate at which I'm critting is not enough to really keep the power charges up. It looks good right now, but when I put in Cold Snap, I'm worried that it's not going to be enough. So we've got some problems to solve there, but it should be a lot of fun. Now, some things that we got going on for this build is we're utilizing Inquisitor and the Consecrated Ground when you are stationary. Something really neat about the interaction between Flicker Strike and this Ascendancy specifically is that Flicker Strike is stationary when striking. And so anytime that we are striking something, we are dropping Consecrated Ground whenever we do that. And so our Consecrated Ground is always going to be up, always going to be ready for us to use. So in that way, it's very reliable. So I'll be working on this build over probably the next couple of weeks. There's a lot of work left to go on it. All we've got really going for us right now is we've got Shaper's Touch, an Astromentus, and a Ghost Writhe, which we are going to be replacing eventually with an Ivory Tower. So that is the plan at the moment. Should be a lot of fun. The tree on this is super scuffed right now, but we'll see how that goes. We also got this from our farming earlier, and so that should be a nice little added bonus. Yeah, that's the next build I'm planning, so if you want to see more on that, stick around. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for following along with my League Start Autobomber build. If you want to see more Autobomb builds, then check out either my previous videos or stick around, because I always circle back around to Autobombing builds. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.